Hi, welcome to this video on how to fit an aftermarket head unit to a 2015 Kia Sportage with amplifier. And let me begin by explaining that the pictures you're now looking at are just there to provide a backdrop while I give you some upfront information about this video and why I decided to make it. I'll go into all the details of how I did this work later on, but just know for now that I'm reading from a script at the moment that I prepared for this video, because there's a lot of information I needed to get over if this video is going to help you to do this work for yourself, so I don't want to miss anything out. Also be aware as you watch this video that I plan to attach a detailed PDF, very detailed PDF I hope, in the notes below, and that PDF will explain to you every crimped and soldered connection that I made in order to fit the new Pioneer aftermarket head unit to my 2015 Kia Sportage with amplifier. The with amplifier bit means that some vehicles have a head unit with I think they all have the amplification built into the head unit, but many will just drive speakers at the front of the car. Other vehicles will have a subwoofer, another speaker or a couple of speakers at the back of the car, and that requires additional amplification, and so that introduces another level of not complexity but some extra work that you have to do in order to fit an aftermarket head unit. I'd like to point out that any work that you do on your vehicle is done at your own risk, obviously, and if you're not technically proficient or very well able to use tools, this job may be beyond what you're comfortable with, because you may need to solder and cut and crimp wires. In fact, you will do. This video does not show how to remove the dashboard of the vehicle. I'll supply a link in the notes below to another video that explains very well how to drop the dashboard and get access to the head unit, so there's no need for me to provide that information here. Also, this video is specifically about a Kia Sportage 2015 with amplifier. But it's my belief that it will probably be very useful to anybody who intends to try replacing an original manufacturer's head unit with an aftermarket unit, and that's because there are some small obstacles to be overcome, largely relating to getting information. So that's really what this video is to help with. People will take on the challenge of fitting an aftermarket head unit for themselves for different reasons, but in my case it was because I had taken my vehicle to a car parts distributor and fitter, namely Halfords in the UK, and also to an independent audio fitter, and neither of those companies managed to do what I wanted them to do, which was essentially get sound out of the new unit. They could both fit the unit and make it illuminate, and you could see it was changing channels on the radio, but neither of them could get sound out, and that's because they weren't picking up 12 volts from somewhere and sending it back to the amplifier at the back of the car. So anyway, the reasons for their failures may be several fold, but at the root of it was the fact that my vehicle had the amplifier with the subwoofers in the back of the car, which some vehicles have and which some don't. And what I came to realise is that if an installer is to have any chance of getting a new head unit fitted whilst retaining the same functionality as your old head unit, which would include not just the audio aspect of the head unit and the Satnav, but also things like the reversing camera, which many cars have these days, control of the audio via the steering wheel controls, use of the phone through the audio unit, through the head unit, and for your new unit to use the existing built-in microphone, which is built into the car, as opposed to running a new one from the new head unit, which pops out of the car in the roof lining somewhere, or maybe attaches to the car's sun visor, then they'd have to do some research first. A large part of the problem in doing this work is information, or lack of it. The diagrams that came with the new Pioneer unit that I fitted were high-level schematics, by which I mean they didn't show voltages on particular pins on the new head unit. They just gave you a rough overview of what the connections were. The information that came with the connecting kits, which I bought from a company in the UK called Connects 2, had very little information about what the kit comprised, and it certainly didn't give information on signals coming to and from the kit. And lastly, and most importantly, I had to find diagrams that told me what the pinouts were on the original 2015 Kia Sportage head unit. So lack of information was the major problem that I was facing. For all of these reasons, I don't recommend that you do this work yourself if you can find somebody else who will give you all of the required functionality for a reasonable price. And to give you an idea of the prices on offer, Halfords offered to do this work for £70, so that was cheap, and they set aside a 2-hour period for doing so. Now there's no way they could have given me all that functionality and fitted the new head unit in 2 hours, because you have to do research. So what they were really planning to do was give me a working radio and nothing else, but they were not able to pick up the 12 volts and send it back to the amplifier. Another audio fitter I spoke to offered to do it for £200, but he came up short. He had the same problem as Halfords. He couldn't get any sound out. And finally, another audio fitter said he would do the job for £800. That was just doing the work, not for any parts or the connecting kits. Now, I don't want to give the impression that this job is impossibly difficult to do for somebody who is not already an audio fitter. If you're used to using tools, and if you're prepared to do a bit of research, there is not really that much to be done physically. To fit my new head unit, all I really needed to do was to be able to take down. Okay, in this part of the video I'm going to try and show you all of the main bits and pieces required to do this job and materials I was working with. So to begin with, these are the notes. I'm not expecting you to read them, that came with the new Pioneer head unit. As you can see, there's information on connections going to the back of the new head unit, but what it didn't tell you about was voltages, whether they were voltages coming in or out. So it's about as much information as I would expect, but ultimately it wasn't as much as I needed. So there's that. That was part of my toolkit for getting this job done. The next thing was this document that was found online, and that would have been with a Google search of something like KIA Sportage head unit audio pinouts, something like that. And you know, this was ultimately found there. And I'll show you this on the computer properly, not on this handheld video. But what you can see there is the signals on one particular connector and what they are, the color of the cables, and there's a view here of the back of the connector, so you can see the color of the cables going in. That's a diagram of the cables as they go in the back of the connector, and this is the same pins as they come out, pin numbers. So that was one connector. I think that's a 24 pin. And then this one is whatever it is, 18 pin. All of these are coming from the guts of the Kia. They plug into the original head unit. It's an 18 pin. And there's another one which I think is also, well, a 24 pin. But they have different functions. So the first one is mainly getting the power to the new head unit. There's also microphone signals on that, which was a bit inconvenient. I'll explain why later. So that was power. I think this one was the audio signals on this connector, and this one was camera information on this connector. But a lot of this is covered by the kit that I'll show you in a minute that I bought from Connects 2. Then this is what the Connects 2 kit is all about. So this is the original Kia head unit, and if we look at without damaging this oak table, we'll just put the phone down a second. This is the back of the original Kia head unit, and you can see those are the connector types that are required to go in there. And then this here is the new Pioneer head unit. And if you look, the connections to this are quite different. So you deal with that by buying a kit from, if you're in the UK, from Connects 2. Now that kit, which is here, is designed to utilize the steering wheel controls, but unless you make some adaptations, some little modifications, then they may not work, particularly if you've got a rear amplifier, and they won't give you the reversing signal, and they won't let you use the original microphone. So let's have a look at what we've got. Now this is actually, I think it's 3 parts to what you're looking at here. I know it looks a mess at the moment, or 4 parts actually, which I've connected together, and I don't want to unplug them all to do this little video, because I've unplugged them all so many times, eventually it might cause problems. So I'll try and show you what's what. This here, this black box, is from Connects 2, and this is what does the main business of giving you the ability to control your audio, your new head unit, from the steering wheel. It's got 2 connectors going into it. You plug them in, they supply them, you plug them into this box when you get it. One connector is called this one here, this one on the left, it's the smaller one. They refer to that as a patch lead. And what that does is it's really just this jack connector here, and that goes off to a connector which goes in the back of the new head unit. And as you can see, it says on it steering wheel control. I think you can see that, steering wheel control. So of course that's related to, you know, using the controls from the steering wheel. Also coming out of here, there's another one that says rear view camera in here, there. So that's from the patch lead, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Then the other side of this box supplied by Connects 2 is this cable here, which terminates here. This bit here is supplied, and this cable here is supplied by the Pioneer head unit people. So what this cable does is that connects to the main, those 2 connect to the main wiring loom inside the Kia, and they're related to getting power out from the Kia, getting power to the new head unit and to the steering wheel, and also audio signals. Okay, so that's that part of it. Then looking on this side, this is supplied by the new head unit people, by Pioneer. And you can see here, there's a cable. So on my new head unit cable harness, they supplied this blue and white cable with a bullet connector. I didn't do anything with that. That's how they supplied it, which goes into this connector. And the idea is that gets picked up by the Connects 2 side of things. But actually, this cable here, this blue connector, blue and white cable, doesn't get picked up at all here. There's no corresponding connection on this side. What they have instead on the Connects 2 side is this little flying lead here. You can see that there's a connector on it. It came like that. I think I might have changed this connector to one that fitted a reciprocal connector that I had. But in any event, this little flying lead that goes nowhere comes from Connects 2. And what I had to do was take this cable here that comes from the Pioneer side and connect it here and make a connection. I had to come up with a crimped connection from here or there and connect it to there. And it's that got the 12 volts out to the amplifier. It's that the fitters that I was employing weren't using. This had a name, the connects to, this had a little label on it at one point, and connects to call it something like remote cable. That's all it said, remote. And what by remote it meant, you know, to a remote amplifier, but it didn't say that anywhere. So that is one of the few connections that you have to do if you're going to do this yourself. Connect that to that. It's a blue and white cable, and it'll be marked remote on this side. On this side, I forget what it's marked. In fact, I'll try and read it to you what it says in my notes here for, I think it's number 13. They refer to it as violet and white, and it says, of the two lead wires connected to the lamp, is that the right one? Oh no, the blue one. Number 12, blue, white. Connect to the system control terminal of the power amp. So that's clear enough, but it wasn't clear on the connects to side where I should connect it to. So that's that. Next thing I had to do was on the, again, this is the connector that goes into the back of my new head unit. And then again, there was a flying lead that comes out of the back of this. It didn't go anywhere at all. That was it. I don't think it even had a crimp on it. And it is labelled well. It says, there's a label on it. It says reverse gear signal. I'm trying to read it. Input. Reverse gear signal input. And that wanted to see a 12 volts on it. So that the new head unit knew that the reverse gear had been selected. So the question is, where do you get your 12 volts from? And the other thing is, here's another kit. This is a separate kit that I bought from Connects 2. They call this the camera retention kit. And this end plugs into one of the connectors that's in the back of the Kia. I'll show you those in a bit. So there's a little circuit board with it. I think that might be a voltage divider, but I'm not sure. And there's this cable here that's labelled reverse signal. And so I had to connect this reverse signal cable, to this cable coming out of the back of the head unit, the new head unit. But both of those wanted 12 volts. They weren't supplying 12 volts, they wanted 12 volts. So I had to make up this splitter cable here. So this was supplied by me, this bit here, as was this here, this little bullet connector. And what I had to do was find the reverse signal at the back of the, coming from the Kia, which was on, again, I'll probably show you this on a separate piece of video, but you can see here on the 18 pin connector, number 3, reverse, brown black it says. So this is a connector. This is relating to a connector that's in the Kia, right? And you can't see the brown black connector on this picture. And in fact, it's hard to see it when you're working with it, but I had to, the only way I could pick up that signal was to cut the connector. So if you look at here, this is the back of the connector. I had to find the brown black, which is behind those cables you can see in the front rank there, and cut it from this Kia connector and solder onto it a lug, which I could then plug into that, press together with that. And that's how I got the 12 volts from the Kia onto the camera retention kit from Connects 2. So that's pretty much all I did, other than the last thing I had to do was, with the new head unit, I got this microphone, which, there it is, and I can plug that into the back of the new unit. but that would have meant running this cable through the lining of the vehicle, which is more pulling down the dashboard and fiddling about, which I didn't want to do. So I found out where on the Kia I could pick up the microphone signal, and that was on this connector here, this 24 pin again. And if you look here, it says on pins 15 and 16, again I'll put it all in the PDF, but on pins 15 and 16 you can see it says mic minus and mic plus. So again, what I had to do was cut the backs of those wires. They were coloured yellow, white was one cable, and dark green. So I think it's the two you can see next to the two thick black cables on the lower right. So I had to cut those at the back of the connector and solder on two leads that went to a new jack plug that I bought. I got a new one of these, and I bought some shielded cable, which is this stuff. So you can see, let's have a look. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's this cable with an inner core with a white PVC on it, and then you've got that copper braiding, which is a shield to stop interference, and you just wind that copper braiding together and solder it. And so I created a 6-inch or so length of this stuff. This is a big long length. Put a jack, so connected those to my two leads that I just cut on the Kia, and I put that on the other end. And the way I connected it was on the I connected this mic minus to the shield on my shielded cable, and mic plus to the inner connector, which means that if you were to look at this, the shield effectively is connected to this long bit of the connector, and the mic plus is connected to that end bit. So that was all I did, I think. Let me just have a look. Yeah, so the other thing I haven't mentioned is, so this is the camera retention kit. You know, it's a separate kit bought from Connects 2. I've explained the bullet connector to get the 12 volts in, and then this bit here connects again to the back of this cable, which goes to the back of the head unit. So I think that just about covers everything. So other things, this little cable, that's the standard aerial that comes with the, what did it come with? One of the Connects 2 kits. And so it's to accommodate different sizes of connector. So that end plugs directly into the back of the new head unit. This end plugs into the aerial connection at the back that's supplied by the Kia at the back of the head unit. That end does, sorry, that's a bit slightly smaller. This end is redundant. When you buy these kits, a lot of the wires and the cables are redundant. For instance, this green cable here, which comes from the head unit cabling, is if you have a car which can signal when the handbrake's put on. Well, mine doesn't. I've never had that facility on my original head unit, so I'm just going to cut that off. Might put a bit of tape around it so it doesn't, it's not a potential short hazard. And this here, this one that says mute, I don't need that. And there's quite a few bits and pieces that I could show you in the boxes that I've got, which don't do anything. Part of the kit from Connects 2 is the new fascia here, which replaces the original. And that's as much as I think I can show you on this side. So I'll just quickly nip into the back of the car and show you what I've got there. Okay, so these are the wires that come out of the Kia itself, and you can see there are extensions on these cables that I've added. So for example, this here was the original, this blue one was the original USB connector. It's not a modern standard USB connector, so I had to buy an adapter. Got it from eBay. I'll try and supply a link in the PDF, but essentially there's my adapter to the USB that plugs into the back of the new head unit. So that was one extra adapter I had to buy. The next, this one here is the ordinary aerial connection, and I've already shown you earlier in this video a wire that's supplied by one of the manufacturers that connects to that. So that's a simple push together connector. This here for the GPS aerial, this blue bit is the full extent of what's supplied inside the Kia, and then here is another adapter that I bought online, and that plugs into the back of the head unit. And I haven't unplugged these because I'm struggling to get them apart again now that I've put them on, so I'm not going to bother. There it is, it's an adapter cable. Alright, so this one here, I think that is the 20 pin power connector. I think it is, I can't remember. But in any event, you'll see here this bit of soldering I've done. This is for the mic, this thing with the brown insulation tape on. This is where I cut two wires, that mic plus and mic negative, at the back of this connector, so that I could add this short connector. It's about 8 or 10 inches long, I think. I bought this separately, I bought this cable separately, and I soldered it onto those two wires at the back of here. This was fiddly as anything, but I did manage it. And that plugs again into the back of the head unit, and it enables you to use these as the microphones, as opposed to, you know, running it around here and sticking it on the sun visor, which would have been a pain in the backside. And so the only other thing I had to do, this one just simply plugs into the camera retention kit that I've got from Connect 2, so nothing to do on that one. And this is the one with the reverse signal on it, and again you can see I've had to, this was the brown and black cable that goes into the back of this connector. I had to cut that, I don't know how well you can see that, I had to cut that brown and black connector so it no longer goes to this connector shell, and put on it, solder onto it, this female half of a bullet connector. And it's this, I did tests with a meter. When you put the car in reverse gear, you get 12 volts on this connector, and that's what the head unit and the Connect 2 kit want to see, which is why I made that forked connection to pick up, to supply 12 volts to those two places. So I think that concludes the story. Yeah, that's everything other than what I will show you on my computer. I'll just probably go over those diagrams on the computer. So that's it for the handheld stuff. Okay, here we are. This is my Pioneer head unit, finally installed after a long time attempting to get the job done. So it went in easily enough. I mean, you may have remember seeing earlier all the wires that I had to stuff in underneath the head unit here. They all went in reasonably well. I had to poke and prod and get them out of the way, but I don't think I'm disturbing the flow of air that goes in over the top of the head unit. I don't know if I've done, you know, if I've blocked anything that's going to these controls airflow wise, and I don't know what effect heat might have as I go on longer journeys, or whether there's going to be any wire chafing, because there was a lot of stuff to ram in there, and I don't know if professional installers would have done anything different to what I have done. So that's my one concern about this installation, is that I'm going to have to see how that all goes. I don't know the unit very well. I've looked at it a little. The DAB radio, which I'm told needs a special DAB aerial, actually works quite well on occasions with the aerial GPS aerial that was originally there. So it works a bit. I may buy a special aerial if I decide I'm bothered about it. The ordinary radio has been a disappointment, and I have read up now online, and apparently this can be an issue with aftermarket radios generally. FM works quite well, but it's a bit patchy. AM works less well. I think it's going to depend on where I am, whether that works. There are solutions. I could get an aerial booster, but apparently the issue with that is that it can, if there's interference there as well as the radio signal that you want, it can boost the interference as well. So I don't know if that's a great solution. One video I watched on YouTube suggested that it was pretty decent. Another thing is aerial diversification, and the idea there is maybe you have a couple of aerials, the one that I've already got built in, and maybe another one somewhere, perhaps on the windscreen, and you take signals in from both aerials, and they get channeled into the port in the back of the head unit, and that apparently does work quite well. But I'll have to look into that if I'm bothered, and the reason I may not be bothered to do it is because I've got most of what I want. The phone works great, so somebody at the other end of the call can hear me perfectly well through the internal microphones, and if that's what that is there, I think that is a microphone. But anyway, it works, and so I can be heard, so that's good. What else is there? Bluetooth is working well. I haven't fully explored that yet, but I've played podcasts through it. It's linked obviously to my smartphone, and I loaded, for instance, the TalkSport football app onto the smartphone, and I can listen to that perfectly well. Good reception into the head unit, so that works fine. That's still a bit of a mystery to me at the moment, the relationship between the Bluetooth and the Android Auto. You can plug this USB cable in here and get a number of apps that are built into it, but how many of those are of interest to me, I'm not sure. But the other thing is, in respect of listening to music, I could have Spotify or something like that playing through the Bluetooth link to the smartphone, but there's also, obviously I've got my USB port there, so I can plug, and I've done this already, you can plug a USB stick in and get music playing that way, and that works perfectly fine. And the other thing that I was keen on having is I've got my reversing camera working as well. Because of what I showed you in the earlier part of the video, I managed to get the signals connected. So all in all, I'm happy with that for the time being, even if the radio is not as good as it should be. So I hope that's been of use. I know I've rambled on at times, it's been a long video, but that was stuff, most of this stuff I would have liked to have known before I started. So good luck with your project if you're going to do it, and I hope it all goes well.